nicer for people to cycle in Harrow. And this evening we've got you all here to bring some energy to Harrow cyclists, and also to hear our lovely friend Bijou speak about his fantastic bike tours, because we're all here because we love cycling. So I'm going to hand you over to Bijou, who's going to tell us
Okay, thank you everyone. Good evening and thank you all for coming. I hope you find this talk somewhat useful or interesting. If I was to talk about all the travelling I've done on a bicycle, I would need more than the half an hour that I've been allocated. So it's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop talk. But what I would like is for it to be interactive. So if you think of a question while I'm talking, just like at school, just put your hand up and I'll come back to you and you can ask your question. I prefer that because that way you clear any questions that you want to ask on the spot as we go along. Sometimes if you think of a question and we wait till the end, you might forget what you wanted to ask. So please feel free to put your hand up and interrupt me anytime you like. Okay? My name is Bijou Carlisle. I used to be a teacher, and now I've stopped teaching and I do charity work and I do traveling as much as I can on my bicycle. Bike touring is a bit of an umbrella term. It means different things to different people. To me, it's all about getting on your bicycle, pushing the pedals, using your own energy to get from A to B. And that can be over a period of 3 days, a period of a week, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, or even a year. It's all bike touring. So a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time to do this, I can't take time off work. I think if you even take a week off, you could head over to Europe and do a point-to-point ride, stopping in different places every night, and that's a bike tour. Okay? You can make it as easy or as difficult as you like. Some of the places I've been have been challenging. Other places have been easy. Okay? It's still bike touring, and I find it great fun. I've been a cyclist for many years, and I got to a point where I was thinking, I'm just going on rides in circles every day and I'm getting a bit tired of this. I want to do something a little bit different. I want to see a bit of the world. And in my opinion, seeing a country on 2 wheels is the best way to do it. It's not as slow as walking through, and it's not as quick as driving through. It's just right, in my view. Okay? So first and foremost, this is just one. Right? He's a jellyfish that my daughter made for me on my first big tour, and she said, Daddy, take him around the world with you. So I do, and he comes with me everywhere. We spend a lot of time together in quiet, lonely, distant places, and I end up talking to him quite a lot. He's not very responsive, but it gives me a bit of comfort to have a quick chat with him. The interesting thing about him is he's a bit of a crowd puller. So when I'm packing my bags in the morning, putting them on the bike, someone will invariably walk past and say, what's that? And then there's a bit of a story to tell. And it opens up a conversation, which I really like. The only thing is, the morning time when I'm in a bit of a rush to head off is not the time to have a long conversation, so I try to keep it brief. But Just One goes with me everywhere. He's been through deserts, he's been through mountains, he's been through forests and all the rest of it. He's my faithful companion. Right, let's get down to the nitty gritty. No questions yet, which... Yes?
Where do you hide him?
He sits...
Because it sounded like you said it to him.
That's a good question. He hangs on the front of my handlebar, you can see him there. Okay? So if it's windy, he gets the brunt of it. And occasionally he gets a sandstorm, but he needs a wash maybe once every 2 weeks. Right, so that's the kit. That's what I ride. It's a Trek 520 steel frame touring bike. It's got Shimano gear set, the Sora gear set, which is quite hardy. 3 gears in the front, 9 in the back, so that's 27 speed. The biggest cog at the back of the bike is a 36. So it's a nice, easy climbing gear for those hills that I come across once in a while. I bought it pretty much as it is. except for the saddle. I changed the saddle and I put one of these leather Brooks saddles on there, which I absolutely adore. Okay, no seat soreness for me, no matter how many miles I've done. It's shaped to my bottom now, so I dread it if anyone nicked it, and I'll have to start breaking in a new saddle. So I've got two pannier racks, one on the back of the bike, one on the front, as you can see. The two in the front are less loaded than the ones at the back because I save up a bit of space to carry food that I buy as I go along, or indeed water, which is quite a challenge in some parts. Through the Sahara Desert in Egypt and Sudan, I was carrying about 12 litres of water with me. That's 12 kilos on the racks, tied to the back frame and then stuffed in there. So I find it important to leave a bit of space in the front panniers for stuff like that. In that pannier there, I have my tools, right? So the stuff I need for bike maintenance as I go along. I have a first aid kit, pair of flip-flops, not much else. On the other pannier, I have food. So I carry a bag of coffee, which I love, a bit of sugar, porridge oats occasionally, just for emergencies. So I call that one my kitchen, because I've also got a little petrol stove I can use to cook on. I've got pots and pans and plates, knives, forks, the works. All right, all very lightweight, very compact, easy to carry. But that sits in my kitchen, which is the left pannier. The right rear pannier contains all my clothes. I don't carry many clothes. I have 2 changes of day wear and 2 sets of cycling gear. That's it. That's all I need. I'll have a raincoat in there. I'll have a pair of comfortable walking shoes or sandals rather for the evenings. And then for emergencies, I'll carry base layers in case it gets cold, a woolen hat, that sort of thing. But not much more than that. Toiletries can be quite heavy. I like my skin cream. I don't need shampoo. Shower gel, that kind of stuff. It adds up and it weighs quite a bit, and it can get quite heavy. So that's I call that my wardrobe pannier. The other pannier on the other side of the bike at the back is my bedroom pannier. So I've got a sleeping bag in there, which is 1 kilo. I've got a ground mat. I've got one of these, I don't know if you know Helinox chairs. They're absolutely amazing. They weigh half a kilo. They open up and you can sit in them and just fall asleep. They're beautiful. I've got one of those. I have a solar panel that opens up to about the size of this table to charge my electronic devices using solar power if I need to, because there's not electricity everywhere that I stay. What else do I have in there? No, that's about it. That thing over there is my tent, so that's my house that I use only if I have to. Personally, I prefer to stay in lodgings, people's houses, small hotels, small villages where people just offer me accommodation sometimes. But occasionally there's been no alternative but to pitch tent and sleep under the stars, which is fine with me, as long as I can find a quiet place. Some countries that's much harder to do. Egypt, for example, you can't get away from anyone. There's people everywhere, so it was a bit harder to do that in Egypt. But in Sudan, in the Sahara Desert, it's like that. There's nothing for hundreds of miles. It's beautiful. Yes?
When you're in the tent, where do you store your bike?
Sorry?
When you're sleeping in a tent, where do you store your
Just
bike?
beside it. So I invariably be out in the middle of nowhere. I'll just have it parked right
Do you
beside.
get worried about it being stolen? Or?
No, not really. Bike theft it's worse in London, isn't it? I mean, I've been to places where I've been locking my bike to something and people have just been laughing at me saying, why? You don't need to. No one's going to take it. So it varies. Yes, John?
So typically, Bijou, how much does that all weigh?
I was just coming to that. Thank you for asking. Yeah. So the bicycle on its own is 17 kilos, right? My luggage without water is just under 20. So it's about 37 kilos without water. On some tours, I just have 2 bottles of water because I can access it, I can find it, I know I'll find it, so I don't have to carry any more. But there are places where water is scarce, and when that happens, I fill up extra bottles and carry them in the bags.
So the bike then becomes about as heavy as you.
I'm heavier than that, sure. You're trying to get me to say how much I weigh, which I'm not going to.
He's seen you up the hills, Bijou.
Yeah, not the same anymore, Oscar. Getting old, getting old. Clipless pedals, I prefer to clip in, right, just more efficiency. I do wear a helmet all the time. And then the mitts, if I need to, I wear them. If I don't, I just take them off. It's not mandatory. I like to stay visible because I think cycle safety is all about being visible. So I wear yellow as much as I can. Okay. And that's all I need to say about that. That was the start of the tour last year when I left Nairobi and I cycled through Kenya and into Uganda and beyond. That is the tent which I will pitch wherever I need to, if I need to. There have been occasions where I've got to a place and lodgings have been offered, or there's a little hotel, but the room hasn't been quite the standard. For various reasons, hygiene, and the rest of it. And what I'll invariably do then is I'll pitch my tent in the room, which works perfectly. So even if the bed's a little bit bed bug ridden or whatever, I'll take the room because there's no alternative, and I'll just pitch the tent in the room, have my bike in with me, and I'll spend the night. Perfect, right? So if I've got my tent, gives me that sense of security that wherever I am, I can have a decent night's sleep in my own environment. Lots of areas are mosquito infested. They're horrible. You don't want them. So I can take my I don't know what you call the cover,
The fly sheet.
the fly sheet. Thank you. The fly sheet off, and it's just like a net. It's like a mosquito net. So in Khartoum, loads of mosquito before the war broke out. I was there. I had no problem. I pitched my tent in the room, nice mosquito net, and I slept like a baby, right? Sleep is vital. You're doing long distances every day. You're doing it day in, day out. If you don't sleep well, you don't have fun. You can injure yourself. You can have an accident. It's very important to me. So that there was in the Sahara Desert, just before the Sudan-Egypt border. I was cycling. I met 2 other chaps, and we were cycling together. And we actually caught up with the TDA cycling tour that was going across Africa. So that's where they were. We ended up at the same spot to spend the night. So we rocked up with all our gear, and they were all wondering how we managed, because they have all their gear carried for them, which is fine. But they were saying, "Oh, how do you manage this? Don't you go much slower?" I said, "Yeah, we do. So nothing wrong with that." They were going to get through Africa in 3 months. We were going to take a lot longer than that. But the interesting thing was, we met these people, and we were about to put our stove up and boil some water and make some noodles and have some canned tuna for dinner. And their chef said, "Why don't you just join us for dinner today?" And we had a slap-up feast. It was lovely. It was so nice. They were so friendly, and we really enjoyed that experience. In the morning, they set off a lot earlier than us because they had their breakfast made for them. We were offered breakfast as well, which we did have, but they don't have to pack up. Right? Their tents, they just leave them, and the tour people do it all for them. They just get on their bikes and go. We had to pack up and leave, so we were a bit later. We never caught up with them after that because they did big distances. We were going a bit slower because of, we have to think about where we're going to stay, where we can sustainably stay. We have to think about safety. In Egypt, it's a little bit dangerous in certain parts. Yes.
So when do you think about where you're going to stay? Do you think the previous day, on the day itself? What time?
It's on the day itself. So while I'm riding, if I'm on my own, while I'm riding, I'll have an idea of what lays ahead, how many kilometers it is to the next possible stop, and I'll plan for that. So it's a day at a time. It's never more than a day in advance. When Alka and I cycle together, we tend to need to plan a little bit more in advance so that we can regulate the standard of accommodation. But that's fine. I don't mind that at all. Alka and I have actually done. Alka's my wife. Other stand up. Say that. For those of you who don't know, so we've done a few tours. We rode from London to Vienna a couple of years ago, which was great fun. It was wonderful. And we've just come back from India. We did 2 months in India. We cycled from Mumbai down to Kerala. So she's a seasoned cyclist. Her requirements are a little bit different to mine. So she won't be coming on all my tours. One of the best parts of all my journeys is meeting the young kids. They are just so full of energy. And this was in Tanzania. It was towards the end of the day. I was coming to, I didn't know whether I'd find a place to stay, this little village. These kids were going home from school. So that they're in their school uniform, and they stopped me and they said, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" I told them, "Where have you come from?" I told them. They said, "Wow, wow, wow." And I said, "What are you doing? You finished school. Where are you going?" So they had that's a hoe that you used to dig with, and they had a rake and other digging implements. And they said, "Oh, we're going to dig in the field because we do that every day after school. We go to dig in the field so we can plant food to grow crops that we eat." I thought, wow, how wonderful is that? They weren't related to each other. I think one of them was a brother and sister, but the others were just friends. They just off after school to dig in the field and help their parents with cultivating their food, which I thought was quite spectacular. But everywhere I've gone, where we've gone, the kids have just been really interesting to talk to. They have no inhibitions. They'll just come and ask you whatever you want. They'll ask about just one. They'll say, "What's that?" And, it just starts a conversation, which I love. In Tanzania, one of the biggest problems I faced was 10 days of severe headwinds. I was heading east and the winds were easterly. 25 kilometer winds for many days in a row. And I started to lose the will after a while, but I kept going. But the interesting thing about that was the locals would draft behind me. So they'd see me riding along and they'd take my wheel and sit there for kilometers at a time. And there was no such thing as taking a turn in the front. I was the foreigner, I was the Muzungu, I stayed in the front and let them take it easy. Right? And that happened a lot. But I didn't mind, I didn't mind. It was just an opportunity to talk to them and get to know them a bit, and then once in a while one of them would just filter off into the village that they were going to, and I'd end up with one at the end or whatever. But that was a challenging time because of the wind, but interesting because of this opportunity to help some of the local cyclists get around. Africa in general is full of bikes. Everyone rides a bike, and a bicycle is not just a means of exercise, it's a means of making a living. They carry amazing loads on those bikes, and they're single speed. They're not very well maintained because most people can't afford to maintain them to a high standard. So when they see a bike like the one I'm riding, they're quite intrigued, and they feel it within themselves to try and keep up. We can keep up with this foreigner's bike. He's got his fancy bike. We can ride just as quickly as him. I really enjoyed that interaction. Again, meeting people everywhere I go is always a highlight for me. I cherish it, and I try to make as much time as I can, because it's not just about the cycling, it's about meeting people, learning about their culture. This was in a little village called Molo in Kenya, just before I headed further west towards the tea plantations. And there's this group of boda boda riders. So they're the guys who have the little motorcycles, and they would make a living by carrying people in the back of the motorcycles from A to B, right, like little taxis. And they were gathered there, and I was walking past, and one of the guys said to me, "I'm really thirsty." He just said that to me. So I had a bottle of water in my bag, and I took it out and I gave it to him. Okay, and that just opened up the whole situation. I was their best friend after that. They said, "You can have boda boda rides wherever you want, free. Yeah, you don't have to take your bike anywhere." So that was just an interaction that I really enjoyed, because they were really friendly and genuine and curious to know where I'd come from and where I was going, and it was just another nice interaction. There are so many of these I could tell you about. Okay, that's the other beauty of cycle touring, you don't have to be on your own all the time. I've taken the family as well. So Alka's there, and our two daughters, Anoka and Janvi. We went to India last year, and we cycled from Chennai on the east coast of India, right across Tamil Nadu, over the hills, and into Kerala. Okay, the girls had to come back for work in 2 weeks, but we carried on after that, the two of us, and we cycled further north along the west coast of India. But the girls have been riding since they were able to, really, and they've really embraced this idea of bike touring. So I think we've planted a seed that may flourish in years to come. They're very keen to do more with us, which is nice, because normally people of that age don't want to be with mum and dad too much. This kind of keeps them with us, and hopefully we'll have many more family tours together. They started very, very young. When they were that young, I used to drag them along in a trailer at the back of my bike. Alki used to ride hers, and I'd have both of them in the back, and they'd be reading or whatever, and we just go from A to B. And so they got the bug, which is quite nice. And I'd encourage any young families to try it, because it is really a nice way to be together and enjoy a country as you go through. Right, lots of people ask me about bike transportation. How do you get your bike from A to B? You can take them on the plane as main luggage with most airlines. All you need to do is pack them in a box of a specific size. If you can go to Halfords, you can ask for cardboard boxes. They're throwing them out every day. You can collect one for free. You need to pack the bike in a certain way. So the wheels need to come off, pedals need to come off, seat, handlebar needs to come off, and it needs to be well secured within the box. So what I tend to do is what many people don't do, but I think it's very important to do that, is to make sure that when you've packed your bike in the box, it's packed as one non-movable unit. So everything's tied to everything else, right? So there's no bits rattling against anything else. And what I use to tie the bits to each other are old tie tubes. They're great because they're elastic, they hold it really firm. So once I've put everything together, I tie everything together with the rubber, I can lift it all as one, and I can shake it and it doesn't make a noise. And that goes into the box. And that reduces the chance of damage to your bike. I've met lots of cyclists who've had their brake rotors bent because it's been knocking against something inside the box. And I avoid those kind of catastrophes, really, in some parts of the world, by keeping it all quite tight together. So that's going one way. So that's going from London. I can get a box from Halford, pack my bike, and take it somewhere else. Invariably, when I get to the airport, I put it together. Boxes are so valuable in some parts of the world. People will line up to take the box off you. They'll have some use for it. Might be shelter, it might be, I don't know, whatever. But they'll be lining up, they're waiting to see what you're going to do with your box and just take it. Coming back is a bit more of a challenge because sometimes I end up in places where there are no bike shops. I can't get a box. So in those situations, you have to improvise. So what I tend to do is I look for cardboard. So it could be a fridge shop, a cooker shop, and I'll just get any box and I'll make a bike box. So that was one I made in Tbilisi in Georgia. Now you'd think Georgia has loads of bike shops and it's a European big city, they should have cardboard boxes, but it was peak season, there were lots of cyclists cycling in, flying back home, taking all the boxes. I could not find a bike box, okay? Some guy offered me to sell me one for £40. I thought, no, I'll go for the fridge box. So I did, and I made, I think I sent you that photo. I made a box. So I made my bike unit, and I wrapped it with cardboard. I taped it, and I took it home. Right, so that's the way you can take your bike abroad. It's not difficult. You have to be a little bit creative sometimes, but it's not rocket science. The important thing is what I said about the packing. Make sure it's all one and nothing rattles against anything else. Nothing gets scratched.
Usually in this picture, your back wheel is on.
Yeah,
And the front wheel is off,
Front wheel off.
right? And then is this to protect the derailleur?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have 2 layers of cardboard under here to protect the derailleur, which I don't take off. Yeah, so lots of...
So things like the
Yes.
skewers and the other bits, the loose bits, what do you do with
The
those?
skewers will stay on the bike. I'll leave them on, and I'll just put a bit of tape and newspaper and just wrap it around, just to keep it safe. Yeah. It takes a while to do it properly, and yeah, but remember, when I pack my bike, I assume it's going to get thrown across the room onto some conveyor. It needs to be that well packed. Otherwise, you end up, any damage can end your, well, can make your tour a lot more difficult depending on where you're going. Okay. Right. Punctures. Touch wood. I haven't had that many, but I've got everything I need to fix them. The biggest challenge with punctures out in the open where there's nothing around is finding shade. Because when it's hot, it can be oppressively hot in some of the places I've been to. That was in Turkey. It was 36 degrees that day. And luckily my puncture happened near this little sort of like gutter on the side of the road where I could get some shade and fix it. I carry 3 spare inner tubes, so I won't fix the puncture tube on the road. I'll just put it in the bag and put a new one in and do the repair when I get to wherever it is I'm going to be staying for the night.
What tires are you on? Marathons?
I'm on shore marathons at the moment, yeah. And I haven't had a puncture with them yet. These were my Bontrager ultra hard
That's what
case.
came with the bike.
Yeah, that's what came with the bike, yeah. Is that your hand up? Yes.
Yes. You had any mechanical failures worse than a puncture? And how did you deal with them?
The worst I've had, luckily, again, touch wood, is a derailleur playing up. So the chain not going onto a big ring. I've had brake squealing, but nothing worse than that. The only mechanical that would probably stop me in my tracks is the free hub going, or a bottom bracket going, or a derailleur braking. The hanger, yeah. I do carry a spare hanger, so I've got that, but yeah. But those are the sort of mechanicals that would mean hitching a ride. And this is another thing, it's an interesting point. I've never felt so looked after than I have felt on the loneliest of roads. The kindness of strangers is amazing. People will drive past and stop and say, "Are you okay?" And they'll give me an apple, right? And it just makes you feel that even though you're in the middle of nowhere, you're safe. It's a really weird feeling, but I felt it everywhere I've been. And I find it really reassuring, because a lot of people ask me, "Aren't you scared?" Of course I'm scared. I'm scared at the start of every single tour. I'm anxious, I'm apprehensive, I don't know what's going to happen. But I know that people look after each other. And the world, I said this to Veronica a few months ago, I've discovered that the world is full of nice, wonderful people, kind people. Right? Yes.
Yeah. What do you do for money?
So I carry US dollars with me, a certain amount, to get me out of a real pickle. But most places I can use my Cashpoint card, my Santander debit card. So long as I inform the bank that I'm going to Sudan or wherever it is and I'll be using it, they set up the system and it works. So there's never been a problem with money. There are other apps as well, like there's an app called Wise that you can use to pay directly into people's bank accounts in various countries all over the world. I've used that as well. So you can load it up online from your UK account and you can pay Mr. X in Azerbaijan directly into his account. It's an app. So a lot of it is cashless. But I do carry emergency money, which I distribute in my panniers in secret places that I cannot talk about, just in case. Just in case. I have actually been in a situation where I've helped someone out because they've just been in a bad place and they needed money to get out, and I was able to help them. So I think if you're going to be doing a tour like this, you need to be sensible and carry some cash. US dollars are accepted everywhere in the world. Yeah, so that's what I do. Not at the moment, maybe not for long. Yes, James.
Sorry, sticking with money,
That's right.
what are your running costs, daily running costs?
It varies from country to country. What can I say? In Kenya, I'd say on a daily basis, with accommodation, about £10 a day. Places I've stayed, right? In India, what would you say? About £10 a day. Okay? The most expensive place I was in would be Germany, probably, and that's a lot more. I mean, we were staying in nicer places. You're looking at European standards and hotels, right? But in the more rural parts, I'd say on average £10 a day, at the most. That's accommodation and food
Per person.
per person. Yeah. Right, thank you for the questions, by the way. It makes it a lot easier. That was me in Kerala last year. It was very, very hot. You can probably see the glistening sweat on my arm. It was 38 degrees that day. And I was on my way to see my mother's brother who lives in her father's house just to visit. I did a tour of Kerala just to visit my family in their different villages. It was fun. That was last year. But it was very hot. Kerala gets really hot at this time of the year, March. Oppressively so because of the humidity as well, which makes it a lot harder. That was this year. On our ride, we were coming into, I don't forget the name of the town, with the Shiva temple there. Along the west coast of India. It's a beautiful ride, yes.
You seem to have lost your kitchen.
We were riding together. So when we ride together, I don't need a kitchen because we'll always be staying somewhere where food is provided.
And it's India, you're going to eat.
You get the prize, you get the school prize for observancy today. Occasionally you have to cross a river to avoid the busiest of the roads, and then you'll find a fisherman who will be willing to take your bikes for you. Or you can find an actual ferry. This was an actual ferry, although it looks like a small fishing boat, a little rickety thing. And it takes you, 200 or 300 meters across the water to the other side, saving you a whole busy motorway ride wherever possible. So that was us in India just a couple of months ago. Yeah.
How much sunblock are you going to?
Not that much, in fact. I'll put sunblock on my arms. My legs seem to be okay. My head, I wear a snood under my helmet, so, and I'll put a little bit on my nose. And factor 30, I haven't even on our tour. We didn't get through a bottle. Yeah, and that was 2 months we were away riding every day. So not that much. Yeah. One of the things I love doing when I can is doing a sketch now and again, just to capture a moment that I didn't take a photograph of for various reasons. This was in Tanzania, as you can see, and I was cycling through these hills called the Sekenke Mountains. They call them mountains, they're hills. And one of the biggest dangers in that area are the baboons. The baboons are territorial. They're always looking out for food, and they hang out in gangs, right? So you're outnumbered immediately. And I remember coming up this one climb, and I looked ahead, and there was a troop of about 30 baboons just hanging around on the road. Some of the males are quite big, yeah? The females are much stronger than me, right? So they can be quite intimidating. And I've never had to deal with baboons in close proximity like this before, so it was my first time. But I'd done a bit of research, and everyone says, don't make eye contact, don't make eye contact, just ride through steadily. Don't have any food outside, right? So I thought, right, we'll do this. So I carried on, and I cycled through, and they're all staring at me. You can feel it when someone's looking at you. You can feel these baboons looking at me. Big teeth, yeah? And they're vicious, right? They can get a bit aggressive. They're not known to attack humans, though. They're not known to attack humans. So you are safe. It's just that you don't feel very safe at that moment. But I cycled amongst them, I went through them like this, like I'm walking through you now, like that. And I meandered my way amongst these baboons. One of them even scratched one of my panniers as I went by. But I got through and it was fine. And after that, I wasn't afraid of baboons anymore. Because that was a troop of about 30 or 35 with young. And when they got young, they're a bit more defensive and aggressive, but they were fine. So I didn't stop to take a photograph. So I did a sketch at the end of the day, just to remind myself of that instant, yes.
Have you ever had any challenges with people not that you haven't been able to communicate with, particularly in more rural areas where they're not speaking English?
Plenty. All through Georgia, English was very, very, very sparse. Azerbaijan, the same. Even through Turkey, right? The Google Translate is an amazing tool. Everyone has Google Translate these days. So you make do. I spent an evening drinking wine and eating chicken with a group of Georgian guys, and the whole evening we just communicated on Google Translate. It was amazing. So yes, there are many challenges like that, but it's not hard to sort of jump.
So what do you use for navigation in terms of the route planning?
Yeah.
And another question, in terms of the countries where you've been,
Yeah.
where would you say the kind of best traffic was, or people in cars relating to bicycles, where it was kind of worst or best? Kind of.
Okay, so two questions.
Yes.
First of all, the navigation. So there is an app called Komoot that many of you are probably familiar with, and it works, if you have the premium subscription, it works all over the world. So I use that when I have to, right? When there's lots of choices of routes, I'll use Komoot to get me from A to B. Directionally, I'm just heading south or heading east. So I'll just use that to plot my route. Most of the places I've been have been quite remote, so there is just one road heading south, one road heading east, so I don't need to navigate. And in those situations, Google Maps is more than enough, right? That's all I need to use. If it is more complicated and I use Komoot, I will load the route onto my Wahoo. I didn't bring it today, it's my bike computer, and it will direct me turn by turn wherever I need to go. Komoot is excellent that way. In some places it can be a little bit out of date. We have had incidents where roads have just ended and they're not there anymore.
Into the sea.
And then there's a bridge that's gone, or we're at a river, we can't cross it. So that's what I use for navigation. In places like Africa, it's not difficult to navigate because there's just one road, right? You just follow the road that heads in one direction and you get there in the end. The most complicated place in terms of navigation was India. There's too many options, right? There's roads everywhere. And it's like spiderweb, so you can't just follow your nose, really. Traffic-wise, I'd say the worst I've ever experienced is England.
I was waiting for that.
No. In terms of aggressive driving, I would say Harrow, yeah. I would say Egypt. Yeah, Egypt was the busiest. But extremely busy in Cairo. All the roads into and out of Cairo are very, very busy. But there's no road rage. This is the beautiful thing that I've found. In lots of countries I've been to where there's been a lot of traffic, people just get on with it, but no one gets annoyed. There's lots of hooting, but the hooting is not in annoyance, it's in announcement. It's to say, I'm here, I'm behind you, right? It's that. And that's one thing that really struck me everywhere I've been where there's been traffic. People aren't angry, they're dealing with it. It's not pleasant, but they're not annoyed. And they don't get annoyed with cyclists. Now that might be because I'm obviously foreign, so they're a bit more respectful, yeah. But I've not felt there's never been a situation in all my travels that I've felt danger on the road. And I felt it more in the UK. most certainly. The best, you asked about the best country as well for cycling. I would say Germany. Their infrastructure is incredible, even more so than the Netherlands. Yeah. In Germany, motorists get annoyed with cyclists if you're on the road because there's a cycle path for you everywhere.
You got told off once.
We got told off. There's a cycle path everywhere, which is just incredible. So you can ride traffic-free in Germany. If anyone's thinking of their first bike tour, Germany, for sure. Accommodation's amazing, food is amazing, beer is amazing, wine is amazing, and the roads are just incredible. Traffic-free roads. Someone had a hand up? No. Okay, how am I doing for time, Veronica? I could go on.
5 to 9.
So 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, ask questions. Phones.
Phones and what do you do with SIMs and?
Yeah, so whenever I land somewhere, I will look for a local SIM, and I'll just buy the local SIM and put it into my. I have 2 phones, so I'll have my UK phone with me that doesn't change for emergencies, and I'll have my traveling phone, which I'll just put into the SIM.
And that's the one you use to navigate and.
Yes. Yeah, because that's the one that'll have data. Yeah. I think we pay the most for our phone data in the world, in this country. It is so cheap everywhere else, unbelievably so. So that's what I do. That was Kericho, tea plantations in Kenya last year. Absolutely stunning, just miles and miles of tea farms in the hills on the west of the country, as I was going through. Yes.
Do you need to charge everything every night?
Yes.
You have 2 phones to charge, your lights? Or
Well, my UK phone is just there for emergencies, so I don't use it for anything. So it holds its battery for 3 days, right? My traveling phone I'll charge every night because I use it for navigation when I get to a place. If I'm just heading out in the desert and I know it's just one road, I'll just switch it off and go. I need to charge my tablet. I've got a small tablet that I use for all my planning and admin work, emails, stuff like that, so I'm in touch with the rest of the world. I need to charge
your Wahoo?
my Wahoo is very good with battery. It will do 4 or 5 days on a full charge. The Wahoo Element Bolt, some of you might know. Excellent battery capacity. Then I need to charge my lights as well. I was going through tunnels in Turkey. Some of them are 5 kilometers long, pitch black. You need your lights, so I'll keep my lights charged as well. Yes?
There's an average, how many miles or kilometres a day and how many hours a day do you cycling?
That's a good question. There's a different answer to both those things in terms of kilometres and hours. It varies depending on the terrain. If it's undulating, I will look to about an average of 90 or 100 kilometres a day, on average. If the wind is favourable, if the weather is favourable, and it'll be at a steady pace. I'll stop a lot because I need to do it again the next day. It's not like a club ride where you can break yourself and then recover for 3 days. It's not like that. So what else? You had another question. How many hours? So now on an undulating 100-kilometre day, I would take 5 hours. So I'd aim to start by 9 in the morning and then be done soon after middle of the day before the afternoon heat comes in. When I was in Portugal and Spain, I was starting at 7 in the morning because it was so hot last year, and finishing earlier.
And does this vary whether you're with alcohol or not with alcohol?
It varies significantly.
Then 200 a day.
I'll answer that by saying when I'm with Alka, I notice a lot of my surroundings along the way. It varies. When we just finished a ride in India, we were averaging about 40 kilometers a day. Okay,
Bijou told me
that's
after
the
this
Wahoo.
trip.
That's the Wahoo bike. It sits on the front handlebar.
He said he got unfit on our last trip.
Oscar.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
A few photos back, I don't know whether you can go back.
Okay.
There's a wonderful image, which is of you with the green snood on, and that's not that one.
Yeah.
You've got the road behind you,
Yeah,
and then the reflection in your glasses in the road ahead of you.
yeah.
How long was that road? And
Okay.
what was going through your mind? And I've got one more question after that as well.
Okay, that's the Sahara Desert in Egypt. Okay, from Alexandria in the north of Egypt all the way down to Aswan in the south, they have an immaculate tarmac road, like that, built through the desert. Occasionally it gets sand swept because of the sandstorms that happen. 700-800 kilometers, like that, through the desert.
And what's going through your mind?
All sorts of things. Yeah, it was a beautiful ride because it was just so empty. You know, there was just nothing there. We'd stop. I met a Frenchman and an Austrian chap that we rode together. In fact, I've got a photo of them. Yeah, these two guys. We'd stop at these things called cafeterias, which are basically lorry coffee stops. And the deal was we could pitch our tents there for free, use their toilet for free if we ate there. So it worked. We were looking for food. We had a nice spot in the desert to stop in, and that worked really well. There'd be about 100 to 120 kilometers between each of them. So that would determine how far we'd have to ride in a day. The other biggest challenge we faced was water. I said earlier on I was carrying 12 litres of water when we didn't know when the next water stop would be, and that was quite intimidating at times. Not knowing. If you knew where it was, it's fine, but when you don't know, it just brings it all into a different sphere. The water that was available were from wells, and generally quite clean. But what I would use is my trusty Sawyer water filter. Now this thing has a ceramic filter in it. 0.6 microns is the filtration measure on it. It will stop everything that's going to make you ill. So you can filter muddy water and it comes out clear and you can drink it. Okay, so that's all it is. It's 40 pounds. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Does it work more than once then?
Yes, you can use it. I think it works for up to 50,000 gallons of water, right? And you can reverse flush it to clean it out. So there's a syringe that comes with it. When you get home, you can pump clean water through it and wash it out. And the thing to be careful of is if you go sub-zero and there's water in it, it can crack the filter and then it's no good anymore. So you need to be aware of that. But I've never been, I'm as fair with a cyclist. I don't go where it's cold.
On that note, having answered, it's 9 o'clock.
Okay, I'll finish off. I could talk forever, but I hope it's been interesting. I have many stories to tell. Maybe one day.
Perhaps we'll have another one.
Bijou, what's of your travels? What's your most
Memorable tour?
What's the thing that sticks in your mind as being most memorable?
I would have to say the journey through the desert, Egypt and Sudan, 2022. Yeah, 22. Incredible for many reasons that I can't go into because we've run out of time. One more.
Can I just ask where you plan to go next? What's on the list for next?
Right, so my next tour is, hopefully if all goes well, I always say that because anything can happen. I'm heading to Kazakhstan in the end of April, and I hope to cycle across the Kazakh steppe, across the country into Uzbekistan, into Kyrgyzstan, and then up to the Chinese border. Wow. So I'll be into May and June.
How many miles?
That'll be about 2,600 kilometers. Thank you very much, everyone.
I just want to say a massive thank you, Bijou.
You're very welcome.
And completely underestimated the amount of time that
I know. I did say 20 minutes would be too short.
Absolutely. I felt like I was taking too much of your time, but
No.
it felt like it was no time at all. But yeah. Yeah, thank you. We do have the space for a little bit longer, so we have got perhaps another 15 minutes if people wanted to get another drink, wanted to chat to Bijou, wanted to chat to myself. Let me just introduce the committee members, Harrow Cyclists. So if anybody has any questions about Harrow Cyclists, you can talk to us. There's myself, Palvi here, Tony, Veronica, Vikash, and who am I missing? Penny.
In the corner.
And Penny right at the back. So if you have any questions, and Ed.
Yeah.
Ed's there. So if anybody has any questions, you can come and talk to us. But yes, please feel free to have a chat, grab another drink if there's any biscuits or anything left. Yeah, so 15 more minutes. And just, I want to say a massive thank you for everyone coming. I also forgot to say at the beginning, there are toilets at the end of the hall. At the end of the tea, as I'm offering you another drink if anybody needs. So yes.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry. And also, a few people have asked whether this costs anything, and the answer is it's obviously free, and we're very, very welcome. But I will put a bowl by the door, so if you want to put anything in, that would be nice too. Thank you.
And yes, thank you.
Thank you.